Oh Cloud, you are truly the only husbando. If only there was a game somewhere out there that went ever so slightly vaguely into your Pac-Man story before Final Fantasy VII. Hello everyone, I'm Chris Mazzillo Strifeson, and today I'm going to be doing a game that does just that. Yep, that's right. I'm going to be looking into Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. So, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII is the prequel to Final Fantasy VII. That is little more than just a nostalgia-fueled sex ride for die-hard fans of the original. This feeling comes across from just the opening screen, when the music kicks in and you get those deep, tingly feelings down in your special area. The story follows Zack Fair, this guy in Final Fantasy VII. No, I meant this guy. From the get-go, you already learn his character, a super cocky super soldier in Soldier. With a sweet ass. As well, he just bumbles around working for Shinra as a soldier. Despite the opening trying its best to be exactly like the original, you may notice a little change in how things operate around here. Mainly...
Conflict resolved. Oh, yeah. Conflict resolved. Activating combat mode. Conflict resolved.
And then suddenly a roulette wheel, because why not? Seems to make perfect sense. It doesn't make any sense. But really, as far as openings go, it does a pretty good job. The boss you suddenly come across feels really quite imposing and the music is intense. Shame you stand at its arse, just slapping it with your sword. The general story is that one of the 3 soldier first class soldiers have seemingly gone missing, and that seems very mysterious, so Zack is to be promoted from second to first class.
I've recommended you for first.
And Jill! Oh, I love you, man! And Jill!
Don't make me regret this, Zack.
More like soldier no class. So to prove that Zack is worthwhile for first, his job is to go into this Wutai base and, well, kill everyone. Which he seems all too eager to go for. At least the missions have some sort of weird quirkiness found in the original games, I guess. Although eventually after slaughtering everyone on the Wutai base and burning it to the ground, you suddenly realise that Angeal, your mentor dude with the sword, has mysteriously gone missing, but don't worry about that, as you're suddenly pulled to the fiery dimension to fight Ifrit. And then you just kind of stand there like a doofus. Until Sephiroth appears and shatters reality, or something. This is why he and the other first class have their own fan clubs. Sephiroth stripped to the waist. Oh my. In your hunt for Angeal and Genesis, you get placed on a mission that Sephiroth didn't want to do because he didn't want to have to possibly kill his friends. He's a nice dude like that. Here you learn about Angeal and Genesis and their backstories, with Angeal's more just sitting around not giving 2 fucks about the hordes of beasts in town. Or that I'm robbing her. Oh. But after finding a mysterious base, it's up to Zack to infiltrate inside without being noticed. Perfect. Then it's here where we first meet the man himself, Genesis. He mainly walks around quoting overly cryptic poetry and setting people on fire.
What do you know? Shinra lapdogs!
He's probably not evil. At least Angeal is just confusing and interfering, but deciding to fuck off anyway. To maybe kill his mum? He's a good guy, right? Genesis continues to talk about random poetry quotes and then transports you to the nth dimension to fight Bahamut. Afterwards is when we get one of the major themes of the games, kind of blurted out, with Genesis revealing he's got wings and turning into a literal monster. Zack blurts out,
Soldier doesn't mean monster.
Oh, I didn't edit that. That's just the turn of events. Soldier aren't monsters. Instantly airstrike the town off the face of the planet. Yeah, not evil. You're swiftly promoted to Soldier First Class, which mainly consists of a black turtleneck instead of blue, and suddenly the Shinra building is attacked. So you and Sephiroth split up to take it on. You decide to check on some of the lower floors where you stumble upon... well, okay, moving on. In which you eventually bump into some of the Turks, including Cisne, who, that's right, one of Zack's closest friends. But after quickly brushing the Turks under the carpet, you're back with Sephiroth as he's talking about the time he and his close chums seemingly tried to kill each other for the fun of it. It's good to see this side of Sephiroth, you know, when he is just the legendary soldier hero. He seems like a decent guy. You find a room with Genesis and a scientist inside who may or may not, but most likely is, evil, and Genesis continues to give us a really good reason for being the main antagonist, in that he recites poetry all the time. Honestly, only assholes do that. Zack bumps into Angeal, who continues to maybe be evil or not, doesn't actually give any reasons for anything. If only he'd actually talk, we might be able to solve anything. Zack falls down and somehow ends up here. Ding 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 ding! We've got a confirmed Aerith. Now shit's gonna get going. Zack, like any man who fell a couple 100 feet, immediately asks Aerith out on a date and is instantly shot down.
What is that? Don't be silly.
But she goes on a date with him anyway, and you have this weird dating sim portion of the game where you play a variety of minigames to try and impress Aerith and become her boyfriend. But they make a cute enough couple, so I'll allow it. The date is oddly cut short due to the Shinra building still being under attack. After a brief cameo from Hojo for no real reason, you find yourself at the top of the roof, where Aerith phones you while a dragon is tearing a hole into this dimension. Talk about timing. Later, after surviving a tragic helicopter accident, after trying to do something about Genesis, I don't know, you find yourself traipsing through the snowy mountains with some infantrymen, when suddenly... Oh! It's him! Anyway, you eventually find some facility and fight Genesis and maybe kill him, while Angeal decides to be a good person and try to kill you? Who knows? Does anyone really care about this part of the plot? Suddenly, you got the Buster Sword and you had a few moments of being deep. But finally, at long last, we're off to Nibelheim. You get to play through one of the most iconic parts of Final Fantasy VII, as it was meant to be viewed. Although, Genesis is weirdly here. But at least Sephiroth tells him to fuck off.
You will rot.
But suddenly, our dear friend Sephiroth seems a little off. I hope he's alright, I hope nothing bad happens to him. Oh, that's right, he burns the town to the ground. Although, the scenes that take place are at least nice to watch, and this segment really starts to show the bond between Zack and Cloud.
Cloud, you did it.
Shame it's so short. 4 years have passed and you're breaking out of test tubes. Alright, time to start filling in some of those blanks between Nibelheim and the start of 7. What we actually came here for. It's mostly just Zack carrying Cloud around, occasionally putting him down to kill a bunch of Shinra men. Odd that it only took being experimented on for 4 years to turn Zack against Shinra. I wouldn't mind if it was just mostly Zack carrying Cloud around slowly getting hunted down by Shinra. But no! Apparently we need to tie up this Genesis plotline and people are just making shit up as they go along at this point. I swear, the gift of the goddess, has changed in definition about 1,000,000 times at this point. Genesis just needs to accept that he's got it wrong once, twice, maybe like 5 times by now. But eventually you defeat Genesis in what feels like a rather meaningless character arc. But whatever, Genesis is suddenly a good guy again, and we're finally getting to the good parts. The ending. The ending of Crisis Core is what really makes the game great, as you get this moment of Zack fighting to protect his friend against a massive army of Shinra soldiers, as his closest friendships flash before his eyes, eventually leading to Cloud finally coming out of his semi-comatose state to see his closest friend dying in his arms, and in his shocked mind imprints Zack's personality and career onto his. You see, this is what I wanted the entire game to be. I wanted it to be like Zack's backstory, showing him interact with characters that we already know in the universe, filling in a few gaps here and there and slowly showing how he comes to go against Shinra. Instead, what we get is a boring plot where the two main characters of it aren't even playable or there half of the time. No one cares about Genesis and Jill and the poem Loveless. That stuff was handled so poorly in my opinion that choosing it as the main mission that leads to Zack growing as a person, and as he discovers the dark secret that all of the Soldier First Class are genetic monsters, and just seems a little lame. It's mostly Zack running from place to place to shout, "What's going on?" be ignored by Oars, and Jill and Genesis progress the plot by talking near each other. The parts of the story that involved Zack interacting with Cloud and Aerith and the Turks were great, because it involved characters and organizations we already knew about, and had a basis in the plot. And Jill and Genesis are pretty much wiped from the surface of the planet, with no mention of them in history ever again, which even the game mentions. The Jill and Genesis sections felt more like filler arcs than the main plot, which is awkward, when they were sort of meant to be the plot. I get that one of the major ideas of this was just the passing of torches, what with Jill to Zack and then Zack to Cloud, but really it's just a bit meh. Sure, you've got this added addition, like an adding of legacy with each iteration, with like initially with the passing of honor with Jill, and then added upon that was this idea of a dream of becoming a hero with Zack. But the problem is that, like, the people who represent some of this shit, like Jill, is just kind of boring, because he just talks about honor all the time, so he just comes across a little flat at times. Not to mention that you've got, like, Genesis, who is obviously meant to be the representation of this hero dream. However, all he does is walk around quoting Loveless and trying to vaguely recreate the poem in a way that you're obviously aware of, but at the same time doesn't really pay off in the end due to just the overt mysteryness of the fucking poem itself. I actually enjoyed the game a fair bit though. The game was full of various references to the original, some a little more shoehorned than others, and some a little more comical. The game still managed to maintain the same moments of humour found in the original game, and avoided going hardcore on the crits, and even filled the game with random minigame segments, whether it being a squatting competition, catching shit in waterfalls, a sneaking minigame, or even a bit where you're sniping robots. The combat was interestingly different, with the same idea of slotting materia to yourself, but a more active combat system that involves rolling around to dodge and block, and the spinny wheel that does this. Yeah. A part of me was upset at the lack of changeable weapons, being none, as I always feel that's a staple of JRPGs, with the Buster Sword being nothing more than a cosmetic change. The game also has like a billion side missions, which are meant to be Zack doing his normal soldier duties to make you feel like maybe you actually are in Soldier for once. And these can be sort of interesting, but they are just generally filler content but with some unique enemies and lots of unique material and equipment. The main issue with doing some of these is that you rapidly become over-leveled for the main story, meaning that you can pretty much just punch most bosses to an easy KO. See? Even the hardest boss in the game. It's a piece of cake. Ah. Okay, there. Done it. 100% completed the game. I'm the best. There are times where this game just kind of feels nothing more than an attempt at tying together the Final Fantasy VII franchise, what with all the loose ends that are kind of gathered from all the other games and extended franchise shit that they've created, and they've all tried to pull them together with this mysterious character known as Zack. What with like a couple of characters just turning up out of the fucking blue at the end from Dirge of Cerberus, or one person to represent the entire Turks from Before Crisis games, Cisne. And seeing as none of these characters from these other like games like Dirge of Cerberus and Before Crisis really turned up in the original PlayStation game, you've got to go like, oh yeah, they're like somewhat around when Zack was there, and Zack was a mysterious figure in Final Fantasy VII, so that's why they're plot relevant and actually exist in the universe. I couldn't really help but feel a bit disappointed in the whole Angeal and Genesis shit that went on. In a game that's meant to be about Zack, they take front and center. Yes, they're meant to represent parts of Zack, and be a reflection of his honor as soldier for an evil company with Angeal, or his dream of being this great legendary hero with Genesis and their and all these delusions. But the problem is that I feel were these characters existing alongside him in, say, some story about dealing with the remnants of Wutai, or dealing with Avalanche, and you got these characters running alongside Zack, and as they progress through this other story, you then see that, like, you know, the flaws in the honor of soldier or the dream of being a hero, as you get reveals of these people being monsters or genetic experiments, and then like developing into the Shinra is bad, instead of this rather confused plot about Genesis and Angeal and experiments that come out of nowhere and degradation. Who are these people? And why? What I wanted is more of this idea of Zack interacting with characters that we already knew from the franchise, like Cloud and Aerith, and seeing how he actually slots into their lives and became an important enough of a figure to even warrant his own separate game. Because he is. Because he fucking is. But you don't really get much of that happening on screen, just in flashbacks in the fucking roulette wheel. Problem is, though, this could quickly make me feel just and come across as nothing more than a stark raving mad fan. Hey, have you wrapped up that video yet? What are you doing? What? Hey there, and thank you for watching my video. If you liked what you saw, then feel free to like it or comment about what you liked in the video. Even if you didn't like the video, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Sorry for the massive delay between videos though, because I kinda disappeared from the face of the planet for a small amount of time. Anyway, thank you, and maybe check out some of my other stuff. Bye-bye. Although eventually after slaughtering N Genesis Deacon and but suddenly Sephiroth's comment was interestingly different with the